All right, for all of you listening, if you've stumbled on this podcast, you're going to want to make sure that you stay and listen through this whole thing, because this is the number one searched topic online when it comes to relationship is, when should I go or should I stay? I can't figure it out. And we've seen this with our couples time and time again, and we've helped guide them through this place. And sometimes the answer is, oh my God, I am avoiding fully committing and putting both feet in. And sometimes it's the need is to actually completely step out. And we're going to guide you through all of this. And the reason you want to hang out here is, if you aren't clear in your relationship and you're kind of hanging out in the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and there's lots of contemplation and conversations about, the qualities in your partner, and there's lots of processing around it, and you don't feel fully clear that this is the person you're choosing to be in life with, you are actually killing yourself slowly. You are wasting years of your life by being in the distress of not having a place to fully connect to.
Not that we want to increase your distress, but you should be so distressed about this place.
All the distress you're feeling about not being clear.
You should be feeling
more distress because you're killing yourself. And as human beings, sometimes we need the leverage to really feel the pain of what's actually happening. And if you aren't in a connection, in a relationship where you can fully commit, it's been studied and proven that you are dumping cortisol, and there is distress of not having that safe bond with your partner, with the other person. And your nervous system would be scanning and looking for places of danger, and you end up living more in survival. And think of all the years, like if this isn't figured out, you guys, you could be wasting years of your life arguing, fighting, avoiding over all these little day-to-day things that have to happen. We want to help you break free from that, gain the clarity of what the process is, so that you can either fully commit, and this is our last topic here, of fully devote to the process to gain the clarity of, is this, both feet in, or do you need to leave?
Yeah. And I feel like this is a big collective one. Like a lot of people sit in this place a lot. And I think this comes back to, we also live in a bit of a half-hearted society, perhaps, where we're having to learn about what commitment really looks like, which is part of maturing. And also having to deal with, if you're not clear, get clear and turn towards what is needing to be turned towards to get clear. But I think it's been really normalized in our society to hang out in the half-hearted place. And for some people, they're honest about the half-heartedness. And for others, they're not honest, but in their heart, they're in the half-heartedness, the 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Or completely unaware. Like there's a lot of people that don't even know that there's a problem with the relationship, because they're leaning on that 1 foot out and feel okay when they've got the 1 foot out, and they've got all these distractions and numbing agents. And this can be a tendency to men more of the time, where there's like a living in the head and a bit dissociated of what's actually happening. And so sometimes there isn't even an understanding that there's a problem.
Yeah, so 1 foot in, 1 foot out. What are we talking about here? We're talking about this place where people are in an ongoing question all the time in some way. Should I be here? Should I not? Or so that's one example, right? Is it always being a question. Or where they're constantly in an ongoing way sort of leaning into the relationship, but also leaning out, well, we'll see. This is an example where people say, well, we'll see what happens. And, I don't know if we're going to keep being together, and we'll see. And, there's this ongoing talking with other people about, I don't know if we're going to stay together. And, I have quite a few people, actually couples in my field, where for years and years and years and years and years, it's an ongoing thing that they're processing. And I think in our culture, this is a very present thing, and partly because how I see it is that we first of all haven't been modeled full commitment. And what does it look like to be in commitment that's not codependent? Like what does it look like to commit in a way where we get to be authentic, ever evolving beings? And almost like that half-heartedness is part of how people are trying to figure out how to stay connected to themselves and in relationship. But then it's wishy-washy, unclear. Or I also think we're trying to unwind from relationships culturally where people weren't relating from their full authentic selves. And so people are in a bind almost. How do I have myself and have relationship? Does that exist? And then it's hard to get clear on what's needed. What would you say about that?
Yeah, like there's so many factors that I see at play here. When I look at more of the man side, I'd say there can be a big struggle around options and choice, because if we actually span out a little bit and look at our history, it's really only in the last 30 years specifically where there's a lot more information right in front of us right now, like instant access. We have dating apps where you can just swipe and choose, like, yeah, not this, not this, ooh, maybe that. And a high likelihood with a lot of these apps that person will sleep with you that night. Like, there's so much choice and availability right in front of us. And back in the day, that's not how it would work. Like, we would actually have to walk to another village and it'd be days and weeks to have option. And it was more like how that animal part of us is so specific to procreation. And I think now we're in this time where it's harder to fully commit, because it's like walking into a candy store and you being told, like, in the most epic candy store ever, you can only have one candy in here for the rest of your life. But we're built in this way to want, to desire, to have experiences. And so it takes more work. It takes more evolution. It takes more maturing, making sense of the past history of the household we grew up in and these dynamics that we learned from. I'd say to really make sense of what commitment is and why it would be beneficial. Because I think that's a part that's missing with the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, is there isn't enough leverage. Because as humans, we need leverage. Why? What kind of pleasure are we going to get out of staying here long term? And what kind of pain will we be avoiding by staying into this thing? And then how to navigate the pain. And so I'd say probably with all humans, what I've seen that more on the man side. It's like pornography and choice and dating apps and all these things. That's like, when I think of myself, it's like that. Ooh, I want that. Like, there's just that more of that drive. And on the feminine side, I'd say how I've seen it is there's that deep longing for emotional safety and presence and care. And now the options and the availability that's present is there's so much information that now backs and emphasizes that is a need, and that men need to provide something different for them to feel it. And so I'd say part of what's tricky now is there's like people being informed of like that righteous place of I'm not getting what I need in relationship. But then there's all these options. And so it's murky terrain that we're in collectively, because there can be for some a lot of pressure to show up in a certain way. And it can be frightening. It can be hard to actually be in just a natural, organic, authentic unfolding if there's a lot of pressure and pointing out of like what we're doing and not doing well. And then it doesn't really make a lot of space of, well, I am imperfect and I want to be here. Are we in this together? So to bring it all back down to this piece is, I think it's hard for people to fully go 2 feet in if they aren't clear on the impacts of not being 2 feet in and at least devoted to the process, and also not clear on the benefits and why that will be self-serving to be fully devoted to the process.
Ooh, what I like that you're saying there, Mike, is it makes me think about how um, there's this movement right now, where it's almost like being half foot in, half foot out can almost be seen as the conscious thing, because it's like, oh, I'm keeping my options open. I'm not over attaching. But what's interesting is when you actually get to know the nervous system and the attachment system, that's actually stressful and prevents us from fully landing in clarity about where we're going together. It's sort of like if we're all going to get in a caravan. I don't know, we're getting in a caravan.
Nice.
I'm seeing it. There's a caravan. And we're going there. We're going to this field over here. But we just keep staying in the negotiation of like who's coming and who's coming. And we can't even get going because we're just constantly in the negotiation about who's coming. And then eventually you're like, well, I don't even want to go with any of you people because this like ride sucks. But you haven't even started the ride yet because you've just been negotiating who's going to get in the caravan. And in a way, that's what can end up happening is we're not even getting to actually experience the relationship because we're not fully getting in the caravan. And then we think it's the relationship that's the problem, but we haven't actually fully gotten in to experience it. And I think that's happening for a lot of people and they don't even know that. Like you're not really experiencing the level of safety and dropping in that can happen in the attachment system. And I love how Stan Tatkin talks about this is like, with the attachment system, if you don't say to a child, if they're like, Mommy, am I going to die? You say, no, you're not going to die. You're safe. I love you. I'm here. You don't say, well, yeah, actually, you're going to die.
We're all going to die.
And you could actually die at any moment.
Yeah.
And the thing is, for some of you, that might surprise you because you think, well, no, honesty above all else. But we have to understand our attachment systems need reassurance. They need ground. They need something we can rely on because surviving in the wild together, if at any moment your tribe could just leave you, like I love you and I care about you, but at any minute I'm going to leave you, that is unsafe. You will not be able to settle. And that's just how we're wired for safety, right? And I'm not talking about polyamory because there's polyamorous ways of being that honor the attachment system and have agreements and safety. I'm just talking about sort of the like everyday we'll see energy and the everyday, kind of threat. It's a threat that lives in the field, right?
Yeah. Well, in polyamory, it's clear what caravan. Oh, I'm hopping out of the caravan now
Right.
to go get in that caravan. But if it's done where there's clear arrangements and agreements of where everyone's going and where everyone's sitting, then it can go really well.
Yes.
It's clear. The direction is at least clear.
Is clear. Yeah. When I think back to what created, because this is what I think is another piece to the half in, half out. When I think back to my first marriage, we were together in total about 10 years and we got together when I was 19. And, part of it for me, I was half in, half out the whole time, but I didn't even know it for half the time because I grew up in a family system where nobody divorces, nobody leaves, everybody marries like, their first boyfriend or girlfriend or like young. And so there wasn't even space for me to consider in that I could leave. Right? So then I was in something, but I wasn't even giving myself permission to really actually feel through it fully because that wasn't an option in the field. Right? So then I was underneath in a half-heartedness, but I wasn't turning towards it. I wasn't really like feeling it through. And then the other layer that added to the half in, half out for me and eventually ending up leaving was I didn't know myself well enough to deal with the things that were creating the half in, half out. Like I don't even know where I'm going or what I'm wanting because, I haven't integrated myself enough yet. I don't know myself enough yet. So then I can feel this half in, half out that I'm not sure, but I don't even know how to go to you to talk about it because I don't even know myself enough to go to you and say, this is what I'm wanting, or this is what I'm not wanting. So then we were just kind of smushing into each other, frustrated because we didn't actually know how to deal with it. And really the only way through in that was both of us getting to know ourselves better, to start to be able to come to each other and say, oh, hey, I'm learning this about myself, which when I look back, I think if I was more integrated and I wasn't unwinding from all the generational pieces in the same way, like there would have been a process of me dating and being in different experiences to learn about myself. I kind of went all in, but I wasn't actually ready to go all in. I didn't have my bag with me yet to even know what all in would look like, right? So then there was, and I think there's probably lots of you out there that probably can relate. Now you're in an all in relationship, but it's like I jumped in here and I didn't even at all know what I was doing, But we know couples that have done it and they've made it, they figure it out. They keep going, they do, but they have to eventually deal with that.
Yeah, they have to both arrive to the place of, this is a process of fully committing to each stage of the process and learning the ingredients and the relational practices to really give it a chance to see what it is. Because if we don't fully devote, we are not even going to know or have the right information or evidence of what's actually possible. Waffling one foot in, one foot out. It's not giving it a chance, and it's interesting. It makes me think of when you talk about when you were a little girl, and there's this phrase you use sometimes when you describe your experience when you're like in and amongst other people and adults, and it's like, what are we all doing here? like, what are we all doing here? And I think that's a big.
I've been confused. I'm like, do other people know what we're all doing here?
And I think,
could I get the orientation, please? Someone orient me.
Yeah, and we all need that deep down. That's how we mature, and this is an impact of our culture. We have lost contact with these ancient ways of being connected in relationship to the community, where there's initiation processes that pass the wisdom down from the elders down to the younger generations, down, that kind of create that template of this is how we all thrive together. That part's missing. And so now we've entered into this time where there's this reward and celebration for hyper individualism, but then deep down, a lot of people really struggling and feeling lonely and insecure and frustrated with, why don't I feel a deeper sense of belonging? And this is what we want to help you figure out, because we've watched this with our couples. When there is the realization and the aha of, whoa, when two people come together, they create a soul of that relationship, a third entity. And when we allow ourselves to be initiated by that and choose to both step in, both feet in, that's where the magic starts to happen. That's where the nervous system starts to settle and drop into more safety. That's where we actually hit that place of overflow and wanting to get to know our partner and give them all this pleasure and satisfaction. But if we don't have that in place, of course we're going to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because our culture kind of is with how to be a parent, how, it's not modeled in how to be in partnership. And when I think back to my first marriage, and this is an important one to speak to, because there's so many people out there that are in a relationship and they don't even have the insight or the awareness yet that they are half in, half out. In their head, they actually think they're all in. When I think of my marriage, I'm like, oh my God, I love my partner so much, but I didn't know that to really do it well, I needed support as a man. I needed to join a brotherhood to learn how to actually evolve as a man, how to treat a woman with respect and care, and understanding that a woman's different than a man. There's all these really important informations and manuals I didn't get in the orientation package of how to do it. And then it led to a situation where it had to end, because years of being half in, half out on both sides leads to, this phrase that I really love leaning into. is that every relationship is meant to evolve or dissolve. It wasn't evolving, so it had to dissolve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And the thing to understand is there's two things. Sometimes we're half in, half out because the relationship needs to end. And we're going to go into this next because it needs to end, but we're not dealing with what needs to be dealt with. And we're actually afraid to look. So we keep journeying half in, half out because we know if we turn towards some of those things that are actually really sticky, big deal breaker kind of things, that then we're going to have to face this in a difficult way. So then it's easier to stay half in, half out instead of getting really clear about those things, right? Oh man, I just lost my train of thought. What were you just talking about?
If we are living and functioning from a place of half in and half out, it will
Oh, it
have
chips
to
away.
dissolve.
This is what I was going to say. Sorry. I had a really big womb surround process last week and it's integrating in my belly. So I don't feel like I'm in my head very much. So my head.
So welcome here.
But what I was going to say is, but some of you are meant to keep journeying along, but because you're not dealing with some of those things, and you're just hanging out in the half in, half out, it chips away at the relationship so much that eventually the relationship does end, even though you could have been aligned.
Yeah.
Because the thing to understand is every day that we're in, half out, it's chipping away. It's chipping away at the trust. It's chipping away at the creative energy. It's chipping away at the polarity. It's chipping away. And we're not saying you have to have these moments of tuning in, and we're going to talk about that. You've got to, in an ongoing way in relationship, question and sit with things and, take inventory. We're talking about where we're not fully doing that. And instead we're kind of hanging out on the outer edge and we're not dealing with the things. We're not being honest with ourselves. We're not being honest with our partner, and there's a lot of couples that I've watched too, where they think that working through things is, I'm just going to threaten that I'm leaving. Then we, kind of talk about that and we make a thing about that. And then, that clears that feeling that I'm having. So now I feel more connected to you. Now we're connected for a while until I go into my next round of threatening that I'm going to leave. And there's lots of couples that actually live, it's like an addictive cycle almost. And they think that that's dealing with it. That's not dealing with it. You're literally just like discharging the feeling of I need to go, but you're not getting to what's underneath and the actual issue.
Which sometimes can feel like connection.
Right.
When we hang out in that place, we're hitting that adrenaline button, which can feel like connection, especially in our culture. That emotional, hormonal release that comes from hitting it is like, oh yeah, okay, it feels alive, it feels
we're being
juicy,
real together.
And then sometimes there's makeup sex after it, and then it can be confused of, oh, we're connected, we're doing it. And it's important to understand that if we're in that addiction loop, we're actually, like you're saying, is we chip away at the potential of a deeper connection.
Yeah, we're not actually landing. We're not getting in the caravan.
Yeah.
We're still just negotiating the caravan. And then, one of us, and then we're like, well, I don't even know if I want you in the caravan. And it's like this drama in the caravan, but like, we're not even going yet. Right. And this is the thing we want you to understand is, there's so many relationships that literally will just hang out there the whole time. But your soul the soul of your relationship isn't going to get to do its thing in a bigger way, And
couples will hang out in this place, not even fully understanding it for years and sometimes decades. This is why this conversation's important, because if we actually believe in the feeling of connection through the addiction to drama, we're preventing ourselves from experiencing the life that we're meant to with a partner. Potentially, maybe it is with that partner if there's not the full devoting to the practices and the processes, but it's like wasting years of life with a situation that might be a mismatch, and preventing that other connection that might be so much more aligned. And I've watched this with clients where, I worked with this one woman who is in partnership, of one that I'm thinking of that was 17 years. Another one was 18 years. Another one was 22 years of being together, not fully committed. Like when you hear the history, and it's like, oh, it's painful on both sides. It's just damaging to self and to other.
Yeah. And so let's go to the second. So dealing with deal breakers is our next point. And we got this language from Stan Tatkin. He uses this language and it just names it really well. Is that at the root of much of this, 1 foot in, 1 foot out? It's not the root of all 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Sometimes it's what's going on in our attachment system, like avoidance, this kind of thing.
Afraid of being vulnerable is a really big one.
Yeah.
Like men afraid to open up because when they try to open up, it's met with like harshness or judgment, and there's ingredients that happen on both sides. Like it's just a lack of guidance or tools of how to actually fully lean in.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes there's when we go a little deeper, as you're going to be talking about here, is there are actual ingredients within the arrangement of these two different beings that are deal breakers.
Deal breakers. And, some of that can even be like, so when we're talking about deal breakers, these are things these are usually the nigglies underneath that people aren't really dealing with, that are chipping away. But, deal breakers could be things like one person wants children, one person doesn't want children. One person wants to have an open relationship, the other person doesn't want to have an open relationship. One person wants to live in a city, one person wants to live in the country. One person wants to live on this side of the world, one person wants to live on the other side of the world, Me and my first partner, he wanted to live in a small apartment, high rise, downtown, and live a really simple life.
Your soul's nightmare.
I know, my nightmare. I was like, that is the opposite of what I want. I want to live on land, and I want to have like a dog and kids, and it was just the opposite. And that was a deal breaker, But there can also be other kinds of deal breakers, like Mike and I, like I've had a deal breaker and it's legit. Like, I need to be connected with from warmth. This is a legit deal breaker for me. Like, and it's because knowing myself, knowing who I am, I have to be met with warmth. If there's not enough warmth, I actually can't continue. And that's a core one for me. So deal breakers can also be, hey, this place where you gaslight me and it's not safe for me to be emotional, that's a deal breaker if that continues on. And we're not talking about this as a threat. Like I'm threatening you with a deal breaker in a way of like having power. We're just talking about for real, legit, radical truth. This is something that would have to change for me to be here. And the thing is that for many people, there are these deal breakers that they're feeling inside and that are hurting them, but they're not saying it in that way. You're not saying it, or you're maybe not even admitting it to yourself, right? And we have to get clear in ourselves. What's the difference in our relationship between things that are kind of irritating or frustrating or that we prefer were different versus deal breakers that like, this honestly, if this doesn't change, I couldn't in integrity continue on with this relationship.
Yeah, and a piece to add here that's so important is some people do find that clarity and honesty within themselves, but they aren't being honest with their partner. And then this is part of going back to the 1 foot in, 1 foot out, is some partners will tell everyone around them on what they feel is true, but they don't even give the privilege or the experience to the partner of telling that truth to them because they're actually afraid of all the things that they are getting from it, or enjoying the hanging out in limbo, because of course it can be scary if we actually do face a deal breaker. And if there's kids involved, if there's businesses and money involved and assets and just years of being together, I've seen couples just hard to let go. But we've been doing this for 15 years and oh no. And deep down, they're like, oh, my partner, there's all the reasons. It's like they don't fully choose me. They're addicted to substance. It's like, that's an important one to name. It's like the radical honesty that you find in yourself has to be brought to the table and shared with the partner so that something new can happen. Because hanging on to it and telling everyone around you, but not your partner,
Hmm.
isn't kind to be real to yourself or to the relationship.
And so there's the step of sharing with each other, but then there's the step of actually, now we're going to sit down and we're going to work this through. Because that's the other step. There's a lot of conscious couples that have those conversations. This is a deal breaker for me. This would have to change. But then they just stay there, and it keeps being that's what the conversation is. The next step is, well, let's go to the table and let's sort this out right now. Are we able to sort this out? Is there a way to sort this out? Or do we realize there isn't?
Yeah. Like,
And then, okay, so it means we're going to part ways because we're fully in. We're devoted to this process. Being fully in the process means being honest with each other. I remember with my first partner, when we finally got clarity, like his deal breakers were, he wasn't sure he wanted kids. He wanted to live in a high-rise apartment. He wanted to just travel and live in a small place and not have a lot of possessions. And also, like, he a deal breaker for him was he didn't want to commit tons of his life to self-growth and be deeply in that. He wanted to chip away at it little bits, and and he got clear that's the life he wanted. And my deal breaker that I had to learn to love in myself was, I want children. I want a very abundant, bounteous life with lots of different experiences. And I knew that I wanted to be with a partner that voraciously wanted to grow and evolve and work on themselves really deeply. And I had to get really deep and honest with myself. I need that. For me to be 2 feet in, I need that, which is such a place of self-love to come to that. And so then there we were telling each other this. And then the next step was, is there any way to sort this out? And I remember us like, how do we put this together? And then it was just, I remember the moment we looked at each other and I started to cry and I said, but you're my best friend. And we just cried together and we're like, we're not meant to journey together. And that willingness to and then we just sat there and held each other. You're my best friend and we're not meant to journey together.
yeah.
And I'm so glad, because underneath, when we hadn't come to that clarity, I was so angry at him because I wasn't happy with the life we were living. And then it was spilling out in anger and meanness and, wanting to fix him. And what a relief to come to that place, though.
And what you're speaking to that I love here is that's mature love. Mature love does let go if it isn't the good match. That's so important.
That's love. That's actually sacred relationship.
That's sacred relationship. It's not staying attached to what the arrangement looks like. It's being attached to the process of truly loving each other, which means radical honesty, sharing the truth, being transparent, honest, devoted, on the same page with agreements. And then if in that process of fully devoting to each other and in each other's care, and if that is all happening and it's not feeling right, that is a place where it's honoring the let go. That's the deepest level of love, of not staying
and
hanging on.
In that moment, it's like, I remember the feeling. It was like, oh, I've been wanting to change this. And so I haven't really been loving him and who he is. And in that moment, it's like, not only do I love myself, but I love you. And I want you to have the life that you're wanting to have. And that's the ultimate love. I mean, I deepened so much into love in that moment, and a maturity and a trust in the process, but before that, we weren't getting to the deal breakers that were there, and it was hurting.
Yeah, and what a gift for both of you actually getting clear on what the deal breakers were so that you both can live out the life that's the most aligned, the most fulfilling, truly live out your dharma, and then find the places where there is a good match. Because when you talked about it, I'm like, oh, we're such a good match. Because my previous partner, one of the things they said when they left is, I don't want to devote the rest of my life to growing and transforming. And it's like, oh my God, what? Isn't that what we all want? It's like, not from a place of needing to be fixed, but my soul is here to completely transform into who I'm meant to become in this life. And when I met you, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. This woman, we're on the same page here.
Yeah, we're both going that way anyway. It's like that, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing, when you really like somebody or you love someone, it can be really scary to be honest. Like, this is what my soul is meant to learn about in this life. And what is your soul meant to learn about? And can we find our way together? And really, you know, in this way, part of clearing the field even is dealing with the deal breakers, like Mike and I, one of the deal breakers that's an ongoing one we have to keep like massaging out is like whether we're going to have another child or not. But what I'm proud of us in this is I can feel where we could just keep sweeping it under the rug because it's uncomfortable and it's sticky and it's like, ooh, But what I'm proud of that I feel like is what's allowing us to keep moving and growing is we keep bringing it out and talking about it. It's on the table and it's like a negotiation and a conversation and a feeling into together. And I feel like because we're doing that, instead of it like chipping away at the relationship, it's actually helping us grow.
Well, and deepening it.
Yes.
What I found, especially, I think there was a couple weeks ago, I think there was a conversation we had that was really uncomfortable. And I discovered a deeper truth inside of me that I felt like, was being pushed on and poked. And then I just said it in that moment with so much fire. And then my experience of you is you softened and you settled. And I was like, oh. And what I find interesting in this process is if our partner, because I just want to say this, you and your partner, if you're listening to this, are way more intuitive than you probably give yourself credit for. The truth can be felt in the field. And we will do everything we can to try to get that truth on the table, because once we have the truth, we can settle. We need to know the full thing. Like, something's not being shared here. And what I found with us is once we get to those deeper truths, it can be painful in the moment, but then after it's relieving of like, oh, I was feeling that. But then we can actually then be like, oh, what are we going to do about this? What do we need help and support here? Do we need to let something go than we thought was something else? And what I'm really enjoying in that process is every time we do that and bring our radical truth to the table, it actually helps us feel how strong we are in our allyship, how we do care about each of us living our authentic journey while being together. We don't want the same life, but hey, the thing that you want, the thing that I want is from a soul level. How do we weave these together, and can they keep weaving together?
Yeah, can they? That's the thing, is when we can name them, then we can get creative. But, one of the things that Stan Tatkin's work talks about, and I was like, ooh, yes, this is the key, folks. Once you make the agreement, you have to feel into yourself, I'm committing to this agreement, and I can't keep bringing it up as a point of resentment. Once we've addressed it and made a decision, I have to be behind my decision. And if I can't get behind that decision, I need to be honest about that. But if I get behind it and we make an agreement about this thing that was, a deal breaker, but we actually come up with a solution, then once I make that choice, then we go. We can't keep saying, oh, like bringing it up and being resentful. And this is part of the growing up. This is part of the getting out of the 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You got to go 2 feet and we got to go. It's time to go. We're not going to just hang out here.
Yeah, in the direction of that agreement and the devotion to the process. And your process will be unique. It'll be whatever it is that's the most supportive to your relationship. For those of you listening, this is why we created the Together Online Couples Community, is that's a room for couples to really get super clear on what they want out of life together, and to be in the practices and to show up regularly and to be supported and have a place to process the humanness. And what we found is when there's an environment that supports the getting really clear, it's incredible what comes from that. Just like I spoke about in the intro, those are the couples you see that they have that twinkle in their eye. They're thriving. They're having really good sex because they're clear in the direction they're going. They're in that caravan and the windows are getting steamy. And
Or we've had couples come in too, and then end up breaking up because they've made the space to get clear about the non-negotiables that were there that they weren't dealing with.
yeah,
Not that, like, that's not a big, but we've watched that. But then them being so grateful, we've been just sitting in limbo and not dealing with this.
yeah. I want to give 2 examples here because there's 2 female clients that I've had that really stand out here. Both starting kind of in a similar place where really attracting really toxic behaviors in relationship to the masculine, being treated really poorly, gaslit, emotional abuse, like really not great. And both starting at the same place, both devoted to, a long-term container with me. And our process, what they devoted to is they devoted to the process of getting clear of like, can I stay here? Do I need to go? One of them devoted to the process ended it in a situation where really quickly left this current situation they were in and found a partner that was aligned, and the whole container was guiding them through the experience in their nervous system to stay when their body wanted to go because it was remembering all the previous relationships where they were treated really poorly. But them devoting to a process which was getting support from another person, another man, a new experience. Their devotion was being guided through and helped through all those places they wanted to bolt, and seeing that and being shown and pointed out and guided like, hey, but look what's different. Look, they are able to take responsibility in this and this. And then what it led to at the end of that one was having this really aligned relationship and now having the experience of, oh, I want to fully stay. Like she started off with thinking, I don't know if I'm meant to have relationship in this life, to, oh my God, having relationship in my life is helping me grow in my business and all these things. And then I have this other female client where we went through this whole process and she stayed with this partner and wanted to give it everything she had. She wanted to get the tools and the guidance and the support. And after about 8 months of being devoted to this process, what we guided her into was her being so kind and compassionate and committed to herself that the clarity revealed, why, if I loved myself this much, would I let myself be treated this way when the other person wasn't putting both feet in? They were choosing substance and seeking outside the relationship, and it did lead to ending. And so sometimes being devoted to the process of loving self does bring in the clarity. If the partner is being
or even I'm hearing in that love, not just devoted to self, but devoted to the relationship, because there's literally a place where if you're devoted to the relationship and love, it's like, this is not love.
Yes.
This is actually not love. I'm so devoted to love and to that this actually, we need to end because it's not creating love.
That's right. And this is why you and I, and in our individual work, we only work in containers, because our intention here is to give a couple, if it's our 2-2 or if it's our 1-1, we want to give a person experience of what love actually feels and looks like, and give them that guidance and the felt experience to bring to their partner, and like claim it, advocate for it. And if it's not happening, if they don't want to choose that experience, then things get a lot more clear on whether it's to stay or go.
Yeah. And the other piece I just want to name about devotion, there is a way where we can be 2 feet in, but then also holding little parts in ourselves, like, yeah, if this particular sticky place between Mike and I doesn't change over the next 5 years, or if I don't see some movement in this and it just keeps circling, then you know what, then we'll, like, I'm saying this to myself, to my heart, then we're going to like step back and we're going to be curious, like, is this feeling good, But for right now, we're just in the process of, oh, let's see how might this shift, or how might this change. I'm not with every little part that comes up going to Mike and saying, I don't know if we can be in this relationship, you know? It's almost like tending to these little parts and like honoring, yeah, I hear you. This would have to shift or that would have to shift, you know? Um, if this stayed stuck for a long time, I couldn't, continue on. But because we're not all perfect, so there's going to be parts that are kind of like finding their way through as we're in relationship. But it really is important that we're clear on our non-negotiables and what we're needing. And this is again, too, where having shared vision is so important, because what can happen for so many couples, right, is if we're not clear as a couple what we're devoted to and where we're going, that also is going to impact whether we have clarity about being in the right relationship or not. Like if I'm not clear where you're wanting to go and you're not clear where I'm wanting to go and we're not clear where we're going together, it is going to be unclear whether I should stay or go. So sometimes it's about we need to actually go to the drawing board and get clear together where we're going so that we can get clear if we're meant to be here. But if we're just afraid to have that conversation, we might be in the wondering. And it's really more just, we just need to have the conversation.
Yeah.
We need to find the courage. And that's part of the devotion, right?
Yeah. And there's two important pieces there that you spoke to, is like the devotion to the shared vision, which means there needs to be a discovery of what that is. And, our Together brand has been one of them. Us being parents has been one of them. And it's really helped us. What I've found is when there's the vicissitudes of life, and there will be bumps and there will be, foggy, stormy nights where it's hard to see what are we doing here. And that's because we're human and our material will get triggered. And if we have the remembering of what the shared vision is, it can help us pull us and guide us through those places. And the other piece there is the importance of knowing how to parent the parts, because what you described there is part of a human experience. And I watch this with clients that are 2 feet in, but when they get really triggered into new terrain that's unprocessed childhood material, that part needs to say the thing it never got to say, of like, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't feel loved and I want to run. And it's like, oh, yay, welcome to that part. But it's like you said, it's so important that we need to be the adults to parent the part and guide it and bring it to the place to process and integrate into deeper clarity, not letting it drive the bus. If we go back to the caravan analogy, we don't want all the parts that are unintegrated, like trauma, like childhood history. We don't want the young one driving the caravan being like,
the one who's like, I'm never going to trust any man.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be driving.
Yeah.
We want to listen.
Yeah.
What are you needing? What are you afraid of? What would help you feel safer? But they shouldn't be the one driving.
Yeah, that's right.
Or making the big decisions.
Yeah. Like if we were in a caravan together driving to Mexico and we had the agreement and the shared vision as we're going to Mexico, and I'm driving and we agree on that, and I look over and you give me a funky face or you say something that hurts me, it's not going to be like, well, now we're turning the bus around and just like, we're out of here and you get out. It's like, no. Okay, there's a part that got hurt. You're going to sit in the back. Maybe Courtney's going to drive now. It's learning how to.
We've been driving too long.
Yeah.
We need to make more stops.
Oh, hot springs. We're going to pull over and we're going to the hot springs.
Maybe we need a little space. Maybe we need a little cuddle.
Maybe we need to make some sweet love.
Maybe there's, one of us is really upset about the kinds of snacks we packed and we need to make a better plan around snacks. Like there's all these different layers, But thanks for sticking around, because what we wanted to end with is like, how do you end in a good way? And this is so important because we can absolutely end in a good way. We can stay fully devoted to the relationship as we get clear that it needs to end. And we can tend to each other by creating safety, by loving each other in the process of it, by as we're ending. I was so grateful in my first marriage because we did it slowly over time. He lived downstairs, I lived upstairs, and we just did it really slowly because our lives had been so intermingled and we'd spent our whole adult lives together. We went slow and it felt kind. What are you needing? What am I needing? Let's allow each other to kind of build the life raft of where we're going. And that's not necessarily right for everybody, but it was right for us. And we loved each other in that process. And I'm so grateful because then I was able to stay connected, and we processed it as we separated, as we had insights, and there was this processing. And of course there were moments that were so painful, like ripping a Band-Aid off too, but there was a care in it. And I also probably made mistakes and there was hurt, but then we were able to talk about that, There's a way where we can actually have secure attachment and honoring and respect in the ending. But we have to notice, am I uncomfortable with that? Like sometimes I think why people are afraid to do it in that way of like offering care in it is it's hard for them to stay committed to the ending when there's love there. Like endings means bad. So I don't know how to feel deep love with you and end. But really, truly, those two things can, should, will, do live together. It's like we can die in love. We can leave life with so much love, endings can happen with love. The other thing is sometimes what can happen for people is I only know how to leave if we're fighting. I only know how to leave if you're bad. I only know how to leave if there's a really big drama. That's the only way I can do it.
Yeah. God, the practice, this is the most ridiculous example, but you're making me think of that very last bite of a burger that I loved so much. And I have to take that last bite and then it's gone. I love food a lot.
Yes.
But there's this practice of like to really love something is experience it for what it is in the moment, but then learning how to let it go, learning how to be in care and support of it, being in a different experience, finding love with another person. I know that's probably one of the hardest human experiences is really loving someone and then watching their heart go off and find someone else to carry on the journey. And if what I'd highly encourage is if you're in a place where you do end up landing in the you gotta go, transitions are so caring and kind to both people. And sometimes it's a good idea to get support, have
Yes.
friends.
I would say definitely get support.
Yeah, like get friends, a therapist, join some sort
Definitely.
of community, like something where you can process all the things that come up in the letting go, especially if you have kiddos. Because if you have kiddos, the co-parenting part never stops. Like that's a contract that you're in for life. And so transitioning out of, let's say, a marriage into a co-parenting situation, really encouraging the support and devoting to the process of being supported and how the new dynamic works, and really just respecting each other, because that's not going to just be in service to the other person. There's enlightened self-interest here. You will feel more resolved inside. There will be more the potential of feeling more empowered and satisfied, and a friendship can continue on. Or if it doesn't feel like that in the marriage, it can build a friendship, being able to go through all those difficult steps and then discovering, oh, it was a good idea. We have someone that I'm thinking about in our community where it did end up being a separation, and they shared land for few years and found new partners, but there was such a deep care for each other and a friendship developed that was just right. It was right while, developing love with new partners. So you get to find your way. Your way will be whatever it's meant to, but encouraging support in the transition of it.
Yeah. So really, to sum it all up, what we're saying is that you have to getting clear. Where are you going all in, and get clear about that?
What's currently the situation? Are like getting clear? Are you both feet in or both or 1 foot out, or like on each partner? Then getting clear on the direction.
Yep. Like where am I going all in with 2 feet in? And what are we needing to look at and get on the table and negotiate to get clear so we can clean things up?
Deal breakers.
Deal breakers. And how do we stay devoted to the process of sacred relationship and love in whatever ends up needing to happen. But to any of you that are kind of straddling, know that the straddling place has consequences. It chips away at love, it chips away at health, it chips away on what kind of life and love we can pour ourselves into.
Yeah. And if you're in that place where you are in the straddle, there's no shame here. It's all welcome. It's just good information to learn from. And really inviting you to contemplate what support is needed. If you too, especially if it's in partnership and you're just kind of spinning your wheels, read a new book, get new support, get a couples therapist, join our Together Couples community, find some sort of environment where it's not just you two trying to figure it out. Because sometimes it's just so simple for an outside perspective to be like, oh, you guys are, this little thing. Oh, God, whoa, when you guys do that. And just needing those little movements, a little bit of guidance
We
can bring
all
you.
need outside help,
Yeah.
outside reflections. Mike and I need that.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And if you are interested or curious about working with Mike and I, a really good way to connect with us is through our Together online community with other beautiful conscious couples who are devoted and committed to creating juicy love together through live calls and practices and live coaching with us. And then we also have our 2-to-2 where we work with couples intimately. And that is a very potent 6-month container. And it's probably some of our favorite work, hey, love.
Yeah.
It's
that is 4 feet in.
That's for maybe even more 6 feet, because then there's like the feet of the soul of our relationship.
That's right.
Yeah, it's like 6. There's 6 of our feet are in.
That is one of the most devoted processes that we are the most passionate about, of like guiding couples through.
Yeah.
Either that real deep, juicy connection or the clarity of how to transition in a good way.
Yeah.
And if you guys got value out of this, please do me a favor, depending on what platform you're listening to, hit the like, hit the 5-star, hit the bell, hit subscribe, do all the things that really helps this message reach more people, so that we can live in a world where it feels more together.